Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And we have another great article from Sasha Segan at PC Magazine. I will leave it in the description down below so you guys can check it out. It is from a couple of weeks back, but I wanted to kind of tie this in with what I wanted to talk about. So his title is very clear, very straightforward. T-Mobile has just 1 year. Now, I think there's more to that story than just, 1 year. I think there's more to it. So to kind of explain a bit what I mean by that, Verizon is getting ready to light up C-band in the top 46 PEAs by March next year. And a lot of work is going to go into that from now until then. So we'll see some markets lit up by December, but that doesn't mean that the entire market is going to have C-band. They're still going to have to scale it in these top 46 PEAs. And while Verizon is busy doing that, T-Mobile is likely going to continue scaling its 2.5 outside of the urban and suburban environment. So just for example, I'm anticipating traveling from El Paso to Phoenix on the 10. I'm anticipating them to start scaling that 2.5 on that stretch. They have, I would say, a pretty dense grid along that stretch. I've traveled it several times. They've built their grid on band 2. Sprint built theirs on band 25 mainly. So as they plug in some of those Sprint keep sites, 2.5 should be able to maintain 80% of that stretch, I would say. There are some larger gaps from what I remember. Low band will fill that in, N71. But other than that, 2.5 should be maintained throughout about 80% of that stretch. So that'll give them a huge speed boost along that way. So that is something that they will continue scaling as Verizon and AT&T get busy in the top 46 PEAs. T-Mobile will continue scaling its 2.5 outside of those areas on longer highway and interstate stretches. That's what I'm seeing. They're converting Sprint keep sites already where they previously didn't have any sites. So those will be densification fill-ins for T-Mobile, and that's something that that Neville has been advocating for a while now, that they have the fastest, the largest 5G network and the densest macro grid. He doesn't speak on small cells because he knows he's not there yet. If you listen to him talk, he says macros because he has a lot of macros and he lacks coverage. So what does that mean? He built most of his macros in the suburban urban environment. That's what that means. So he does have across the board likely a tighter macro grid, but he doesn't really speak on small cells because he knows he's behind on small cells. So does T-Mobile really just have 1 year? Maybe. Verizon will start closing that gap and they will perform better. They will start matching speed performance, especially in the markets where they are their own fiber provider. They're going to boost backhaul very high. And I anticipate, especially in the denser urban environments, when they go to touch those macros will likely receive C-band, CBRS, and millimeter wave. So that's a very high capacitive combo. So those sites are going to start flying pretty soon. So I've watched T-Mobile's Analyst Day, rewatched, I should say, 3 times already. And towards the very end of the video, T-Mobile makes interesting statements. They say if Verizon is willing to spend the money, then they'll compete. And if they're not, then their network is going to be Swiss cheese. That's kind of how they stated it. Verizon is showing you action. They're not talking. They're showing you action. They're striking tower deals. There's another one coming in the coming weeks with American Tower. They're saying that they're going to roll out macros at a pace of 2,000 per year in rural America. That's where they lack the densification for C-band. And at the urban environment, they're telling you that they're already dense enough now for C-band. So again, Verizon is investing and they're making it happen. So what T-Mobile is saying is if Verizon is willing to invest, then they'll compete. And Verizon is showing you that they are willing to invest. They're striking the tower deals. They're touching rural America. They're spending 10 extra billion on C-band. So that's going to come in. They're going to come in hot. They're not playing around. And as T-Mobile is trying to change the perception on its network and brand, Verizon is also wanting to maintain the perception that they have the best quality network. And the only way at this time that they're going to achieve that is by spending more. That's the only way. The assets aren't much different anymore. In fact, T-Mobile likely has better assets and more spectrum, especially if they make it more contiguous in Auction 108. They'll likely be able to get some markets up to 200 megahertz on 2.5. Contiguous. So that really doesn't set the two apart anymore. It's going to have to be spending. T-Mobile clearly stated on the analyst day that they are lowering capex starting in 2023. So they will be top heavy these next 2 years. 12 billion this year, 12 billion next year, 24 billion. Then it goes down between 9 to 10 billion. That's very conservative on capex. Very conservative. And to top that off, they gave a future outlook until 2026, and they are looking to maintain that same capex guidance in 2026. So that's 3 years apart, and they're still guiding to that 9 to 10 billion number. So for a lot of people, that's very, very concerning because there's so much to do. The Sprint integration to keep sites, that's a hefty investment. To modernize 10,000 plus sites to T-Mobile equipment, radios. Some of those sites may need the baseband unit to be touched. Some of the sites, for a perfect example, 2 of my work sites have nothing upgraded at all. It's old EVDO CDMA Sprint equipment. They're going to have to rip that entire baseband unit. They're going to have to rip all the panels at the top, the radios, everything out. So that's another massive investment. And I'm sure there's more of these out in the wild. And then they have to maintain the anchor network, which they're building, which is the T-Mobile grid. They have to continue upgrading those sites, and that's not cheap. That massive MIMO equipment is expensive. That N71 panel is expensive. And then on top of that, they have to continue the expansion, the 10,000 new sites. That's expensive as well. And then they can't slow down. They have to continue maintaining the network after the fact. Once the integration completes, they have to keep modernizing radios, adding newer panels, and they will have to continue expanding the network. That 10,000, they have to keep growing the network. The 10,000, it'll be good. It'll help them expand the network, but they will need more. In some areas, they will need more densification. In some cities and towns, they will have to expand into. And then, of course, there's the retail expansion as well. You have to match your retail footprint with your coverage. And T-Mobile is still catching up on that to this day. That's why you're seeing so many stores pop up, because in these towns and cities, they've had services for a while now. They just never had the retail presence. So they will continue a huge retail distribution footprint throughout at least the next 2 to 3 years. So it's all coming together, but it's going to take some more time. I wish that they would have at least kept the capex at that $12 billion range. That would have been nice because they're not doing fiber. But everything else that they're doing is a very heavy investment. Very heavy. It's expensive. And then they're going to touch that core again. They're going to do network slicing. All of that is expensive. It's not cheap. They're going to need state-of-the-art software. They're creating partnerships with Lumen. I mean, there's so much to do. It's just mind-boggling that they lowered the capex, in my opinion. But again, they want to be conservative. They want to run the company with what's working for them and has worked for them in the past. So that's what they will continue doing over the next 4 or 5 years. They gave a guidance outlook up until 2026. So they are looking to continue the growth story that they've obtained over the last decade, pretty much. And they will likely continue growing at the pace that they have been growing. And home internet is likely to help them accelerate their profits and revenue because there's such high demand for that product. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Look forward to reading all the comments. This is just a very interesting topic that I wanted to cover. Is T-Mobile necessarily, after 1 year, going to all of a sudden be done? Likely not. They will still maintain their lead somewhat, but they will have to continue working at a furious pace because Verizon is significantly outspending them. It's not even a little bit, $1 billion, $2 billion more. They are significantly outspending T-Mobile. They will almost spend double the amount of money in the same time period of by 2023, 2026, especially if they maintain that extra $10 billion for C-band. They're going to spend double the money. So it's going to be felt. You're going to feel double the amount of money that Verizon is spending. It's going to be seen. The small cells, the macros, the C-band, the millimeter wave, the CBRS. You're going to see it. It's going to come. It's slow right now, but it's going to pick up. So if you have been on the channel or you're new to the channel and you have not yet liked, shared, subscribed, make sure you do so. Hit the notification bell so you are notified when I do upload content. Make sure to follow the social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.